How are you guys doing? Today is Saturday, March 20th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review the elite performances and matchups from yesterday, Friday, March 19th. And of course, I'm going to preview everything that's going on today as we navigate through the world of sports one day at a time. With the NFL no longer in season and the MLB picking up in a matter of maybe 10, 11 days, I'm going to get started with the NBA because the NBA is in full bloom this season, and with March Madness taking up most of the day, there was only one primetime matchup, and that game took place in Portland, where the Trailblazers hosted the Dallas Mavericks, and in this matchup, the Trailblazers would beat the Dallas Mavericks 125 to 119 after outscoring the Dallas Mavericks by 11 points in the fourth quarter in order to pick up their 25th win of the season. For the Dallas Mavericks in this matchup, their starting small forward out of Michigan, Tim Hardaway Jr., would finish with 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists in 40 minutes as he shot 9 for 14 from the field and 7 for 11 from the three-point line. And the leading scorer for the Dallas Mavericks would be their elite starting point guard, Luka Doncic, who would finish with 38 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists in 39 minutes as he shot 15 for 27 from the field, 4 for 13 from the three-point line, and the Serbian baller would shoot 4 for 5 from the free throw line. And for the Portland Trailblazers in this matchup, their elite starting point guard Damian Lillard would finish with 31 points, 3 rebounds, and 6 assists in 34 minutes as he shot 10 for 19 from the field, 4 for 10 from 3, and a perfect 7 for 7 from the line. And the leading scorer for the Portland Trailblazers would be their starting shooting guard CJ McCollum, who finished with 32 points in 28 minutes, shooting 11 for 23 from the field, 7 for 13 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. With this win, the Portland Trailblazers are now 25-16. Looking out in the Western Conference, that is tied with the Denver Nuggets for the 5th best record in the Western Conference. In the playoff picture, both those teams sit one win behind the 4th seed Los Angeles Clippers. They sit half a game. Specifically looking at the Portland Trailblazers, they have won their last 3 games and 7 of their last 10, as they sit 5 full games behind the first place Utah Jazz. And with this loss, the Dallas Mavericks are now 21-19. That is the 8th best record in the Western Conference. In the playoff picture, they sit a game behind the 7th place San Antonio Spurs, and they actually shared the 8th place spot now with the 9th place Golden State Warriors. But since they've lost one less and won one less game than the Warriors, they hold the 8th spot over the Warriors because they have a better win percentage at the moment. And they've won, even with this loss, they've won 6 of their last 10 as they sit 8.5 games behind the first place Utah Jazz out west. Jumping out to the games that weren't on prime time, starting in Boston, the Celtics hosted the Sacramento Kings, and in this matchup, the Kings would outscore the Celtics 25-15 in the fourth quarter to beat the Celtics 107-96. And just to restate, they outscored the Celtics by 10 points in the fourth quarter to outscore them by 11 in the entire game. For the Boston Celtics in this matchup, their elite starting point guard Kemba Walker would finish with 16 points, 2 rebounds, and 7 assists in 36 minutes as he shot 6 for 18 from the field, 3 for 8 from 3, and he made his only free throw of the night. Their elite starting small forward, Jason Tatum out of Duke, would finish with 15 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists in 36 minutes as he shot 6 for 16 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and 1 for 2 from the foul line. And the leading scorer for the Boston Celtics yesterday was Jalen Brown, their starting shooting guard who made it to his first All-Star game this year. He finished with 19 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 steals alongside 5 turnovers in 35 minutes as he shot 8 for 20 from the field and 3 for 5 from 3. For the Sacramento Kings on the night, their starting shooting guard out of Oklahoma, Buddy Hield, would finish with 22 points and 5 rebounds as well as 2 blocks in 38 minutes as he shot 8 for 15 from the field and 6 for 13 from 3. Their starting center, Richaun Holmes, would finish with 25 points, 11 rebounds, 2 steals, and 3 blocks in 32 minutes as he shot 7 for 11 from the field. He made his only three-point attempt of the night, and he went 10 for 12 from the free throw line. And the leading scorer for the Sacramento Kings would be their starting point guard, De'Aaron Fox, who had a really good stretch in the second half. He ended up with 29 points and 5 assists alongside 2 steals in 37 minutes, as he shot 11 for 20 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the foul line. With this win, the Sacramento Kings are now 17-24. That is tied with the Thunder and the Pelicans for the third worst record in the Western Conference, as they currently sit 4.5 games behind the 8th place Dallas Mavericks and 9th place Golden State Warriors outside of the playoff picture looking in. Specifically looking at the Kings, they've won their last 2 games. They've won 5 of their last 10, and they sit a full 13 games behind the first place Utah Jazz. And then looking at where the Celtics are with this loss, they are now 20-21. That is the 8th best record in the Eastern Conference. In the playoff picture, they sit half a game behind the 6th place Charlotte Hornets and the 7th place New York Knicks. And they sit a game and a half ahead of the 9th place Indiana Pacers and the 10th place Chicago Bulls, who are on the outside looking in. As the Celtics have lost their last 3 games, they've lost 5 of their last 10, and they sit 8 full games behind the first place Philadelphia 76ers out east. Jumping out to Cleveland, the Cleveland Cavaliers hosted the San Antonio Spurs, and in this matchup, the Spurs would get the best of the Cavaliers, beating them 116-110. Most of this coming from their first half, in which they outscored Cleveland by 12 points. For the Cleveland Cavaliers in this matchup, their 2 starting point guards would tie for the team high in points. Their starting point guard out of Alabama, Colin Sexton, would finish with 29 points, 5 rebounds in 39 minutes, as he shot 12 for 25 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, and 2 for 3 from the foul line. And then tie with him for the team high in points would be their starting point guard out of Vanderbilt, Darius Garland, who finished with 29 points and 8 assists in 36 minutes, as he shot 8 for 16 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and a perfect 11 for 11 from the foul line. For the San Antonio Spurs in this matchup, their starting point guard DeJounte Murray would finish with 22 points and 6 rebounds in 37 minutes, as he shot 8 for 15 from the field and 6 for 7 from the foul line. Their starting small forward, DeMar DeRozan, would finish with 20 points and 7 assists in 36 minutes, as he shot 7 for 12 from the field and 6 for 7 from the foul line. And the leading scorer for the San Antonio Spurs would be their starting small forward out of Kentucky, Keldon Johnson, who finished with 23 points and 21 rebounds alongside 2 blocks in 39 minutes, as he shot 9 for 19 from the field and 5 for 7 from the foul line. With this win, the San Antonio Spurs are now 22-16. That is the 7th best record in the Western Conference. In the playoff picture, they sit a game and a half behind the 5th place Denver Nuggets and the 6th place Trailblazers, as all 3 of those teams have 16 losses, but the Spurs have 3 less wins. They sit at 22 wins, whereas the Nuggets and the Trailblazers have 25. So that's where they sit. And they also sit 2 games ahead of the 8th place Dallas Mavericks in the playoff picture out west, as the Spurs have won their last 3 games, and they've won 6 of their last 10. They sit 6.5 games behind the first place Jazz out west. And with this loss, the Cleveland Cavaliers are now 15-26. That is the 3rd worst record in the Eastern Conference, as they currently sit 5 games out of the playoff picture behind the 8th place Boston Celtics. They have lost 5 of their last 10 games, as they sit 13 full games behind the first place Philadelphia 76ers out east. Jumping out to Miami, the Miami Heat, the reigning Eastern Conference champions, hosted the Indiana Pacers, one of the teams that I believe they beat in the playoffs last year in the first round, if I'm not mistaken. And in this matchup, the Pacers would beat the Heat 137-110. They would outscore Miami by 17 in the second half, after outscoring them, of course, by 10 in the first half. For the Miami Heat in this matchup, their elite starting small forward, Jimmy Butler, would finish with 17 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals in 32 minutes, as he finished shooting 6 for 10 from the field and a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. And their leading scorer would be their elite starting center, Bam Adebayo, as he shot 8 for 11 from the field in 26 minutes, finishing with 20 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists Like I said, he shot 8 for 11 from the field and 4 for 5 from the foul line in 26 minutes. And looking at how the Indiana Pacers fared for the night, their leading scorer would be their starting point guard, Malcolm Brogdon, who finished with 27 points in 32 minutes as he shot 10 for 12 from the field and 7 for 9 from the three-point line. With this win, the Indiana Pacers are now 18-22. That is tied with the Chicago Bulls for the 9th best record in the Eastern Conference. They are currently sitting a game and a half outside of the playoff picture behind the 8th place Boston Celtics, as they have only won 3 of their last 10 games. They sit 9.5 games behind the first place Philadelphia 76ers out east. And with this loss, the Miami Heat are now 22-20, as that is the 4th best record in the Eastern Conference. In the playoff picture, they now sit 5 games behind the 3rd place Milwaukee Bucks, as they now sit half a game ahead of the 5th place Atlanta Hawks. The Miami Heat have lost their last 2 games, even though they've won 7 of their last 10, and they currently sit 6.5 games behind the 1st place Philadelphia 76ers out east. And with this win, that's where the Heat are sitting with this loss. Jumping out to Orlando, staying within the state, the Magic hosted the Brooklyn Nets, and the Brooklyn Nets with a chance to overtake the Philadelphia 76ers for the best record. They would face the Orlando Magic, and the Orlando Magic would beat the Brooklyn Nets 121-113. Most of this momentum coming from their big third quarter, in which they outscored Brooklyn by 17. For the Brooklyn Nets in this matchup, their elite starting shooting guard James Harden would finish with 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 9 assists, as well as 2 steals in 34 minutes, as he shot 4 for 15 from the field, 2 for 8 from 3, and 9 for 12 from the foul line. And the leading scorer for the Brooklyn Nets would be their elite starting point guard Kyrie Irving out of Duke, who finished with 43 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists in 39 minutes, as he shot 19 for 31 from the field, 3 for 8 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. And then for the Orlando Magic in this matchup, their starting shooting guard Evan Fournier would finish with 31 points in 35 minutes, as he shot 10 for 13 from the field, 6 for 8 from 3, and 5 for 6 from the foul line. And their leading scorer would be their starting power forward Aaron Gordon, as he finished with 38 points and 6 rebounds alongside 7 turnovers in 36 minutes, as he shot 14 for 20 from the field, 7 for 8 from 3, and 3 for 6 from the foul line. Looking back on Kyrie's 43, he actually had the most points last night, so he had a pretty amazing night, so I think it's worth noting that as well. Jumping out to Tampa, to the 3rd basketball game within the state of Florida, one of the few times you're ever going to see that happen in history, probably. You never know. The Toronto Raptors hosted the Utah Jazz, and in this matchup, the Utah Jazz would beat the Raptors 115-112 in a game that was pretty close, went back and forth. But once again, the Utah Jazz would seal their 30th win of the season. They became the first team in the NBA to do so. For the Toronto Raptors in this matchup, their elite starting point guard Kyle Lowry would finish with 14 points, 5 rebounds, and 8 assists in 35 minutes, as he shot 5 for 9 from the field and 4 for 6 from the three-point line. And then their leading scorer would be their elite starting power forward, Pascal Siakam, who finished with 27 points, 5 rebounds, and 9 assists in 33 minutes, as he shot 9 for 22 from the field, 4 for 10 from 3, and a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. And for the Utah Jazz in this matchup, their elite starting center, Rudy Gobert, would finish with 15 points, 16 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 35 minutes, as he shot 5 for 9 from the field and 5 for 7 from the foul line. Their all-star starting point guard, Mike Conley, would finish with 15 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists, as well as 6 turnovers in 31 minutes, as he shot 5 for 10 from the field, 1 for 6 from the three-point line, and 4 for 6 from the foul line. And their elite starting all-star shooting guard, Donovan Mitchell, would finish with 31 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 steals in 35 minutes, as he shot 8 for 20 from the field and 15 for 16 from the foul line. With this win, the Utah Jazz are now 30-11. That is the best record in the Western Conference and the best record in the NBA. In the Western Conference, they now sit 2 games ahead of the defending champions, Los Angeles Lakers, as they have now won 5 of their last 10. And with this loss, the Toronto Raptors are are now 17-24. That is the 11th best record or the 5th worst record in the Eastern Conference, as they now sit 3 games behind the 8th place Boston Celtics outside of the playoff picture. They have lost their last 7 games. They've lost 9 of their last 10, and they now sit 11 games behind the first place Philadelphia 76ers out east. Jumping out to Houston, the Houston Rockets, looking to end their franchise worst losing streak, hosted the Detroit Pistons. I think the team that is holding the worst record in the East right now. And in this game, the Detroit Pistons were able to beat the Houston Rockets 113-100 after outscoring the Rockets by 9 points in the second half. For the Houston Rockets in this matchup, their elite starting point guard John Wall would lead the team in scoring, as he finished with 21 points, 3 rebounds, and 7 assists alongside 6 turnovers in his first game back. And he also did all this in 29 minutes, as he shot 7 for 16 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and 5 for 8 from the foul line. And for the Detroit Pistons in this matchup, their starting small forward Saddiq Bey would finish with 20 points and 6 rebounds alongside 2 steals in 32 minutes, as he shot 6 for 15 from the field and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. And the leading scorer for the Detroit Pistons would be their starting point guard out of Duke, Frank Jackson, who finished with 23 points in 26 minutes, shooting 7 for 10 from the field, a perfect 5 for 5 from the three-point line, and 4 for 5 from the free throw line. With this win, the Detroit Pistons are now 12-29 as they hold the worst record in the Eastern Conference. They are currently on a 2-game winning streak, even though they've won 3 of their last 10, as they sit 8 games behind the Celtics out east, and they sit 16 full games behind the Philadelphia 76ers for the entire conference. And with this loss, the Houston Rockets are now 11-29 as they hold the second worst record in the entire Western Conference, as they have lost their last 19 games. Of course, that's the worst streak in the NBA right now, and that is the worst streak in Houston Rockets history, as they currently sit 10 games behind the 8th place Dallas Mavericks outside of the playoff picture looking in, and they are currently sitting 18.5 games behind the first place Utah Jazz for the entire conference. Jumping out to Memphis, the Memphis Grizzlies hosted the Golden State Warriors, and in this matchup, the Golden State Warriors would beat the Grizzlies 116-103, especially coming off of their first half in which they outscored the Memphis Grizzlies by 19 points. For the Grizzlies in this matchup, their leading scorer, or they had 2 players that tied for the team high in points. Their starting shooting guard out of Duke, Grayson Allen, would finish with 14 points in 24 minutes, shooting 6 for 8 from the field and 2 for 3 from the three-point line. And their elite starting point guard out of Murray State, their elite starting point guard, John Morant, would finish with 14 points, 2 rebounds and 2 assists, as well as 6 turnovers in 30 minutes, as he shot 6 for 12 from the field and 2 for 4 from the foul line. And for the Golden State Warriors in this matchup, off the bench, their shooting guard, Damian Lee, would finish with 21 points of his own, as he would play 28 minutes. He shot 8 for 14 from the field, 4 for 8 from 3, and 1 for 2 from the foul line, as he also added in 5 rebounds as well. Their starting shooting guard, Jordan Poole, out of Michigan, would finish with 25 points in 34 minutes, shooting 10 for 15 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. And their leading scorer would be their starting small forward, the former number 1 pick out of Kansas, Andrew Wiggins, who finished with 40 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and 4 steals in 34 minutes, as he shot 14 for 24 from the field, 6 for 11 from 3, and 6 for 9 from the foul line. As with the win, I believe Andrew Wiggins had the best performance of last night. With this win, the Golden State Warriors are now 22-20. That is the 9th best record in the Western Conference, win percentage-wise. In the playoff picture, they and the Mavericks are sitting at about even, as the Mavericks are holding on to that 8th place spot because they have 1 less win and 1 less loss. So they have a better win percentage in the table. And also with this, the Warriors, they've won their last 2. They're on a 2-game winning streak. They've won 5 of their last 10. And they now currently sit with the Mavericks 8.5 games behind the first place Utah Jazz out west. And with this loss, the Memphis Grizzlies are now 18-20. That is the 10th best record in the Western Conference, as with this loss, they've lost 6 of their last 4. They now sit 2 games behind the Mavericks and the Warriors outside of the Western Conference looking in, and they also sit 10.5 games behind the first place Utah Jazz out west. Jumping out to Denver, the Denver Nuggets hosted the Chicago Bulls, and in a game that went to overtime, the Denver Nuggets will pull off a 131-127 win, just off of some really good late game heroics from the Denver Nuggets to pick up their 25th of the season. For the Chicago Bulls in this matchup, off the bench, their small forward out of Georgetown, Otto Porter Jr., would finish with 22 points in 29 minutes as he shot 9 for 13 from the field and 4 for 7 from 3. And the leading scorer for the Chicago Bulls would be their all-star shooting guard, Zach Levine, who finished with 32 points, 2 rebounds, and 4 assists in 38 minutes as he shot 10 for 20 from the field, 3 for 9 from the three-point line, and 9 for 9 from the free throw line. And then for the Denver Nuggets, in this matchup, their elite starting point guard Jamal Murray would tie for the team high in points as he finished with 34 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists, and 4 steals, alongside 7 turnovers in 42 minutes as he shot 12 for 20 from the field, 6 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the line. And tied for him with the team high in points would be their elite starting center and MVP contender, their elite center Nikola Jokic, who finished with 34 points, 15 rebounds, 9 assists, and 2 steals, as their Serbian powerhouse would finish shooting 14 for 23 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and 4 for 6 from the foul line in the 42 minutes that he played. With this win, the Denver Nuggets are now 25-16. That is tied with the Portland Trailblazers for the 5th best record in the Western Conference. They have now won their last 3 games, and they've won 8 of their last 10, as they now sit 5 games behind the first place Utah Jazz. And in the playoff picture, they sit a game and a half behind the 4th place Los Angeles Clippers, and they also sit a game and a half ahead of the 7th place San Antonio Spurs, alongside being neck and neck with the Portland Trailblazers at the moment. And with this loss, the Chicago Bulls are now 18-22. That is tied with the Indiana Pacers for the 9th best record in the Eastern Conference. They currently sit a game and a half behind the Boston Celtics out east as they trail the first place Sixers by 9.5 games. And the Bulls have now lost their last 2 games and 4 of their last 10 as they continue to fall a little bit more out of the playoff picture out east. Jumping up to Phoenix for the last game of the night, the Phoenix Suns hosted the Minnesota Timberwolves, and in this matchup, the Suns would beat the Timberwolves 113-101, in a pretty big matchup, and especially in the fourth quarter where the Suns would outscore the Timberwolves by 7 in the fourth quarter, and they also went on to outscore the Timberwolves by 9 in the first half. For the Timberwolves in this matchup, their starting point guard Ricky Rubio would finish with 21 points, 5 rebounds, and 10 assists in 33 minutes as he shot 7 for 10 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the foul line. And the leading scorer for the Minnesota Timberwolves would be their elite starting center, Karl Anthony Towns, out of Kentucky, who finished with 24 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 turnovers in 36 minutes as he shot 9 for 12 from the field, 3 for 4 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. And then for the Phoenix Suns in this matchup, their elite starting shooting guard, Devin Booker, would finish with 16 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 5 turnovers in 36 minutes as he shot 6 for 18 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. And the leading scorer for the Phoenix Suns would be their elite starting point guard and 11-time All-Star Chris Paul, who finished with 20 points and 9 assists in 34 minutes as he shot 8 for 16 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. With this win, the Phoenix Suns are now 27-13. That is the third best record in the Western Conference. In the playoff picture, they now sit half a game behind the second place defending champions Los Angeles Lakers, and they now sit 2 games ahead of the fourth place Los Angeles Clippers. They've won 7 of their last 10 games, as they now sit 2.5 games behind the first place Utah Jazz out west. And with this loss, the Minnesota Timberwolves are now 10-32 as they continue to hold on to the worst record in the NBA. I said earlier it was the Rockets. No, it's still the Timberwolves. Even though the Rockets have lost their last 19, the Timberwolves still have a worse record. But right now they are currently sitting 12 games behind the Mavericks and the Warriors outside of the playoff picture looking in, as they've lost 7 of their last 10 games, and they sit 20.5 games behind the first place Utah Jazz out west for the record. And with that said, those were all the games from yesterday, from Friday. Looking forward to what's going on today, especially during the second day of March Madness. At 8 o'clock, the only game that's going to be on TV will be on NBA TV as the Memphis Grizzlies host the Golden State Warriors. I guess, Jonas Valanciunas versus Stephen Curry is going to be a pretty solid matchup. At 3:30, the defending champions Los Angeles Lakers will host the Atlanta Hawks. That game will not be on primetime. Also at 8 o'clock, the Philadelphia 76ers, the team that hold the best record in the East, will host the Sacramento Kings. At 9 o'clock, the Milwaukee Bucks will host the San Antonio Spurs. And at 10 o'clock, the Los Angeles Clippers will host the Charlotte Hornets tonight. So that's everything that's going on in the NBA as of right now. And switching lanes to March Madness, yesterday was the first day of the round of 64, and of course the second day will be today, as the bracket went from 64 teams to 48, like I just said, or I'm about to say. I'm just gonna go down the list and show and just go over what the matchups are looking like for the round of 32, because you saw all the first round matchups for the Midwest and the South region. So, starting in the Midwest, first-ranked Illinois was able to beat 16th-ranked Drexel 78-49. They were able to score 39 in both of their halves, as they were able to outscore Drexel, of course, by 18 in the first half and 11 in the second half, to outscore Drexel in total by 29 points. Led by Ayo Dosunmu, 17 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists. Illinois will advance to the second round to face off against the winner, or they will advance to the second round. They will go off to face off against Loyola Chicago. Loyola Chicago went on to beat 9th-ranked Georgia Tech in their matchup 71-60 after outscoring them by 5 in the first quarter and 6 in the second half. They were led by their guard, Lucas Williamson, who finished with 21 points and 6 rebounds. With this win, 8th-ranked Loyola Chicago, like I just said, will advance to face off against Illinois. And then jumping off to the 2-seed matchup, 2nd-ranked Houston was able to face off against 15th-ranked Cleveland State. And in this matchup, Houston would end up beating Cleveland State 87-56. Of course, they went on to outscore Cleveland State by 23 points in the second half. They were led by their Kansas transfer, Quentin Grimes, who ended up finishing with 18 points on the night. With this win, 2nd-ranked Houston will advance to the second round, where they went on to advance to face off against the winner between 7th-ranked Clemson and 10th-ranked Rutgers. And looking at to how the games went last night, that game went in favor of 10th-ranked Rutgers after they went on to overcome their 3-point deficit at the half to beat Clemson 60-56. They were, of course, led by their guard, Caleb McConnell, and by a couple of really good plays in the clutch. Caleb McConnell had 13 points and 10 rebounds, by the way, so of course he led it. And with this win over 7th-ranked Clemson, 10th-ranked Rutgers will advance to the next round, the round of 32, where they will face off against 2nd-ranked Houston. And, of course, that matchup will be on the 21st. And then looking out to the other matchups in the 3-14 matchup, 3rd-ranked West Virginia faced off against 14th-ranked Morehead State. And in that matchup, West Virginia would end up beating Morehead State 84-67 after outscoring Morehead State by 10 points in the second half. They were, of course, led by their guard, Miles McBride, who led the way with 30 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists. With this win, West Virginia would advance to the next round to face off against the winner of 6th-ranked San Diego State and 11th-ranked Syracuse. And in this matchup, 11th-ranked Syracuse would advance after beating San Diego State 78-62. They outscored San Diego State by 14 points in the first half and virtually kept that lead for the rest of the game. And they were led by their guard and, of course, coach's son or grandson, I'm not sure, Buddy Boeheim, who finished with 30 points of his own. With this win, Syracuse will advance to face off against West Virginia, and the winner of that matchup will face off against the winner of Houston and Rutgers once that game is played. And then looking out to the last matchups of this division, in the 4th seed, the Oklahoma State Cowboys faced off against 13th-ranked Liberty, and in this matchup, Oklahoma State would end up beating Liberty 69-60 after outscoring Liberty by 12 in the second half to overcome their 3-point deficit. They were led by their guard Avery Anderson III, who finished with 21 points and 7 rebounds alongside his 4 steals. With this win, Oklahoma State would go on and they would face off against the winner of 5th-ranked Tennessee and 12th-ranked Oregon State. And in this case, it would be 12th-ranked Oregon State, who ended up beating Tennessee 70-56 after outscoring Tennessee by 14 points in the first half. And then they both had a pretty even second half. They were led by their center, Roman Silva, who had 16 points and 3 blocks. With this win, 12th-ranked Oregon State will advance to face off against Oklahoma State, and the winner of that matchup will face off against the winner of Illinois and Loyola Chicago. So, of course, that'll be a game for people in Illinois to watch. And then looking out to see what's going on in the South Division, starting off with the 1-16 game. First-ranked Baylor was able to face off against 16th-ranked Hartford. And in this matchup, Baylor would go on to beat Hartford 79-55 after they outscored Hartford by 16 points in the first half. They were led by their guard, Mackie O'Teague, who had 22 points. With this win, they will go on to face off against the winner of 8th-ranked North Carolina and 9th-ranked Wisconsin. And in this case, this winner would be 9th-ranked Wisconsin, as Wisconsin went on to beat North Carolina 85-62, led by Brad Davison's 29 points and 6 rebounds. With this win, 9th-ranked Wisconsin will go on to face off against Baylor in the next round. Looking out to the number 2-15 matchup, 2nd-ranked Ohio State faced off against 15th-ranked Oral Roberts, and in this matchup, 15th-ranked Oral Roberts would end up upsetting Ohio State for what so far is the biggest upset of the tournament so far, as they would go on to beat Ohio State 75-72 in overtime. They were led by their forward Kevin O'Banner, who finished with 30 points and 11 rebounds, and this would come after Ohio State did miss a lot of shots down the stretch, and Oral Roberts did go on and secure that victory. And of course, Oral Roberts just holding it down for, I believe, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Don't get me wrong. But with this win, Oral Roberts would advance to the next round where they will face off against the winner of 7th-ranked Florida and 10th-ranked Virginia Tech. And in this case, 7th-ranked Florida went on to beat Virginia Tech 75-70 in a game that also went down to the wire. And I think the game of March Madness, where, of course, Terrence Mann would hit a step-back 3, probably of the best of his career up until now, to advance Florida past Virginia Tech and make it to the round of 32. They were led by their forward Colin Castleton, who had 19 points and 14 rebounds. With this win, Florida will face off in the next round against Oral Roberts, the team that beat Ohio State, for a chance to go to the Sweet 16. Looking out at the number 3 seed, the 3-14 matchup, 3rd-ranked Arkansas faced off against 14th-ranked Colgate, and in this matchup, Arkansas would beat Colgate by 17. They beat them 85 to... So they went on to beat Colgate 85-68 behind Justin Smith's 29 points and 13 rebounds, as they ended up outscoring Colgate by 14 in the second half. And with this win, Arkansas would go on to advance to face off against the winner of 6th-ranked Texas Tech and 11th-ranked Utah State. And in this case, this one would go to 6th-ranked Texas Tech after beating Utah State 65-53. And in this matchup, the top performer for Texas Tech will be their leading guard, Kyler Edwards, who had 12 points and 6 rebounds. And this would come after they were trailing by 3 at half, and they would outscore Utah State by 15 to pick up this very big win to advance to the next round. With this win, they will face off against Arkansas for a chance to face off against the winner of Florida and Oral Roberts in the Sweet 16. And then to finish off with the last two matchups of the night, 4th-ranked Purdue faced off against 13th-ranked North Texas. And in this matchup, this one would end up as an upset in favor of North Texas, as they beat Purdue 78-69 in overtime after putting up 17 points in overtime. They were led by their guard, Javion Hamlet, who had 24 points, 12 rebounds, and 5 assists. And with this win, North Texas would go on to face off against the winner of Villanova, 5th-ranked Villanova, and 12th-ranked Winthrop. And in this game, after 2 halves, this one would go to Villanova. They would beat Winthrop 73-63. And, of course, within their 10-point matchup, they would go on to outscore Winthrop by 9 in the second half after they were only up by 1 at the half. Jeremiah Robinson Earl would finish with 22 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists as Villanova advances and they will face off against North Texas. And the winner of that matchup will face off against the winner of Baylor and Wisconsin in the Sweet 16. So as of right now, and the tournament is now made up of 48 teams. And following today, there will be 32 as the second half of round of 64 matchups will commence today. And I'm just going to go down the list in order of how they're going to go. Or actually, I'm just going to go in order of just the regions and how they're... Actually, no, I'll just go down the list in terms of what times they are. At 12:15, it'll be the East Region's 5-12 matchup as Colorado faces off against Georgetown at CBS. Colorado coming off of a big Pac-12 season and Georgetown coming off of a Big East championship season of their own. At 12:45, it'll be the East Region 4-13 matchup as 4th-ranked Florida State will face off against 13th-ranked UNC Greensboro. That game will be on True TV. At 1:15, it'll be the West Region 3-14 matchup as 3rd-ranked Kansas will face off against 14th-ranked Eastern Washington on TBS. At 1:45, it'll be the East Region 8-9 matchup as 8th-ranked LSU faces off against 9th-ranked St. Bonaventure on TNT. At 3 o'clock, it'll be the East Region 1-16 matchup as Michigan will face off against Texas Southern, the first team that played in the first 4 playoff. That'll be their first matchup, so that game will be on CBS. At 3:30, 5th-ranked Creighton will face off against 12th-ranked UC Santa Barbara on True TV. That's the West Region 5-12 matchup. At 4 o'clock, it'll be the East Region 2-15 matchup as Alabama faces off against Iona. At 4:30, it'll be the West Region 6-11 matchup as 6th-ranked USC faces off against 11th-ranked Drake on TNT. At 6:25, it'll be the West Region 2-15 matchup as 2nd-ranked Iowa faces off against 15th-ranked Grand Canyon. That game will be on TBS. At 7:10, it'll be the East Region 7-10 matchup as UConn faces off against Maryland on CBS. At 7:15, it'll be the West Region 4-13 matchup as Virginia faces off against Ohio on True TV. At 7:25, it'll be the West Region 8-9 matchup as Oklahoma faces off against Mizzou on TNT. At 9:20, it'll be the West Region 1-16 matchup as Gonzaga faces off against Norfolk State, one of the teams that fought in to get in that spot right now. At 9:40, it'll be the East Region 6-11 matchup as BYU faces off against UCLA. UCLA, the last team that fought to get in. They're the last team that will play in the round of 64 today. At 9:50, it'll be the East Region 3-14 matchup as Texas faces off against Abilene Christian. And at 9:57, it'll be the start of the last game. It'll be the West Region 7-10 matchup as 7th-ranked Oregon faces off against 10th-ranked VCU. In all of these 16 games, there will be 16 victors. That will be the remaining 32 that will get to go on and face off in the round of 32, which actually will start tomorrow. And once today's games are over, I will get into how the round of 32 will shape up. But with that said, that is what college basketball is looking like at the moment, as only 48 teams remain. Jumping to the NHL, just to stay within the arena but shift to the ice. And then remember, just disclaimer, every team has to play within their own division just to limit traveling due to COVID. And with that said, jumping to the East Division, the Washington Capitals were able to beat the New York Rangers 2-1 after trailing 1-0 going into the third period. Their left winger Alex Ovechkin would score both their goals, as their goalie Van Eck would finish with 32 saves on the night. And after picking up their 20th win of the season, the Capitals now sit on top of the East Division as they lead the Islanders by 2 points, and they are now holding on to a 7-win streak in the NHL, as they have also played one less game than the Islanders, so that sits them pretty comfortably in their division. Jumping up north to Canada, the Toronto Maple Leafs hosted the Calgary Flames, and the Flames were able to beat the Maple Leafs 4-3. Their defender Anderson would finish with 2 assists on the night, and with their 15th win of the season, the Calgary Flames are sitting with the 6th best record in the North Division, as they trail the Maple Leafs and the Oilers by 7 total points in the table, as they've played 2 less games than the Oilers in the table, just to give a sense of where the Flames are. And the Canadiens host the Vancouver Canucks, and in this matchup, the Canucks would beat the Canadiens 3-2 in overtime. Their center, JT Miller, would get top star of the game, and with their 16th win of the season, the Vancouver Canucks are now holding on to what is now the 5th best record in the North Division, as they trail the Maple Leafs and the Oilers by 6 points in the table. And then last but not least, jumping out west, the San Jose Sharks hosted the St. Louis Blues, and after a shootout, the Blues would pull out their 15th win of the season, and of course their 30th game of the season. And with this win, the St. Louis Blues are now sitting 4th in the West Division, as they trail the Las Vegas Golden Knights by 8. And speaking of the Golden Knights went to LA and were able to beat the Kings 4-2. Their left winger Pacioretty would finish with 2 goals of his own. With this win, with their 21st win of the season, the Golden Knights are sitting on top of the West Division by 5 points over the second place Colorado Avalanche, as the Golden Knights are currently on a 5-game winning streak in the NHL. Looking out to what's going on for the rest of the day in hockey, I guess not much going on with prime time at 7 o'clock. The Maple Leafs are going to host the Flames on ESPN+, and at the same time, the Capitals will host the Rangers on ESPN+. Outside of that, at 1 o'clock, the New Jersey Devils will host the Pittsburgh Penguins. At 2 o'clock, the Florida Panthers will host the Nashville Predators. At 3 o'clock, the Colorado Avalanche will host the Minnesota Wild. At 4 o'clock, the Tampa Bay Lightning will host the Chicago Blackhawks. At 7 o'clock, outside of the primetime games, the New York Islanders will host the Philadelphia Flyers. The Carolina Hurricanes will host the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Detroit Red Wings will host the Dallas Stars. And the Montreal Canadiens will host the Vancouver Canucks. At 8 o'clock, the Anaheim Ducks will host the Arizona Coyotes. At 9 o'clock, the San Jose Sharks will host the St. Louis Blues. And at 10 o'clock, the Edmonton Oilers will host the Winnipeg Jets, to give a sense of what's going on in the NHL today. And then last but not least, taking a glance of what's going on in the world of soccer, because we are back within Champions League, because the table had already been drawn, and after the game's been played on Wednesday and Thursday, so there weren't a lot of big games. I would say the only big game that I think shook up that shook up any of the tables was in the Bundesliga, where RB Leipzig beat Arminia Bielefeld 1-0 off a 46-minute goal from Marcel Sabitzer. With this win, RB Leipzig now sits 1 point below Bayern Munich in the table, even though they've played one more game than Bayern Munich, but they put pressure on Bayern Munich to win today. And looking forward to what's going on today in the Bundesliga, jumping out to Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich is going to host VfB Stuttgart at 10:30. VfB Stuttgart holds the 8th best record in the Bundesliga, and a win here could give Bayern Munich, of course, a 4-point cushion over RB Leipzig moving forward. And at the same time, staying within the league, FC Cologne will host Borussia Dortmund at 10:30. As Borussia Dortmund currently sits 5th in the table, a win here could possibly see themselves move back up into Champions League contention, as they currently sit 2 points behind 4th place Eintracht Frankfurt in Germany. So that's currently where they sit. And if they lose, they very well could be overtaken by Bayer Leverkusen. So that's what's going on out there. Jumping out in England, first starting on the FA Cup before I get to the Premier League. Everton will host Man City. That matchup will be at 1:30. So that's a game to look out for. Or I guess that's the game to look out for out in the UK as those teams look to advance to the next round. Looking out in Italian Serie A, the Inter Milan game got postponed. So, of course, when that game comes up, I'll get back to you. In La Liga, Celta Vigo will host Real Madrid at 11:15. And then looking out into La Liga, Real Madrid is looking to at least jump right back over Barcelona. They currently trail Atletico Madrid by 6 points, which is a lot less than it has been in recent weeks. But Barcelona has recently jumped them, so now Real Madrid sits third in the table. A win here could temporarily see them jump over Barcelona by a point, but of course they have to win. So that's everything that's going on today within the world of sports. I want to thank everyone once again for listening to all 45 minutes of this piece. I hope all is well. My name is James Sims. This is The Elite. Once again, today is Saturday, March 20th, 2020. We are all here in this quarantine. And after this, of course, I'm going to do an individual profile for Brad Hand. And I'm going to do a preview for the quarterfinal of Champions League. But once again, thanks for listening to my piece. I hope all is well. And peace out. I hope all is well. Just have a great day. And I'll catch you later with more episodes. I'm James Sims. Today is Saturday, March 20th, 2021. And this is The Elite.